Ever get that feeling like you're scrolling along, minding your own business, and then bam, you suddenly have to buy something?
Mm.
That, my friend, is probably brainwashing in action.
Yeah.
Today, we're diving deep into that sneaky science of influence so you can spot these tactics and stay in control of your own mind.
Yes.
We'll be looking at Patrick Fagan's brainwash model from his book, Free Your Mind. He's a behavioral scientist,
Right.
not some conspiracy theorist. And he makes a compelling case that brainwashing it isn't just for cults anymore.
No, it's happening all around us, subtly shaping our thoughts and actions, from the ads we see to the news we consume.
Wow.
Fagan breaks it down into 8 elements, and the first one is a real doozy.
Okay.
B is for bamboozle.
Bamboozle. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What exactly does that entail? Is it like being tricked or something?
It's more about disrupting your normal thinking process,
Right.
making you vulnerable to suggestion.
Okay.
Think of it like a magician's misdirection.
Uh-huh.
They distract you with one hand, while the real trick happens with the other.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection. So how does this bamboozlement play out in real life?
One classic example is the disrupt then reframe technique.
Okay.
Let's say you're shopping and you see a product priced at $2.99. Seems pretty standard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But then right next to it, they also list it as 299 cents.
Wait, so it's the same price just presented differently?
Exactly. By presenting it in an unusual format,
Uh-huh.
they disrupt your normal way of thinking about price.
Right.
Then they reframe it as a bargain.
Okay.
Wow, 299 cents, what a steal.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you're more likely to buy it,
Right.
even if you didn't need it in the first place.
It's like our brains short circuit for a second, and before we can catch up, we've already fallen for the trick.
Yeah.
So how can we avoid being bamboozled? Should we just be suspicious of everything?
Not necessarily. It's more about awareness. Once you understand the tactic, it loses its power.
Okay.
The next time you see an oddly formatted price or a deal that seems too good to be true, take a moment to pause and think critically.
So step back and ask yourself, am I being bamboozled here?
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, let's move on to the next letter in the model. R is for rationalize.
Okay.
This one seems counterintuitive. Isn't brainwashing about forcing beliefs onto people? How does rationalizing fit into that?
It's about how our actions often shape our beliefs rather than the other way around.
Hmm.
We like to think we make decisions based on logic and reason,
Right.
but often we're just coming up with justifications for what we've already done.
Okay.
It's called motivated reasoning.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So it's not that I believe something and therefore I act accordingly.
Right.
It's more like I do something and then my brain scrambles to come up with reasons why that was the right thing to do.
Exactly. Think about those people who believe they can climb a pyramid-shaped headgear and reach enlightenment.
Oh, wow.
Their belief is based on the fact that they've already invested time and effort into this practice.
Right.
So their brains are motivated to find reasons why it's worthwhile, even if the evidence is flimsy.
Wow, that's a pretty extreme example. But I guess we all do this to some extent, right? Like if I eat a whole pizza, even though I know I shouldn't have, I might tell myself, well, I was really hungry, or I'll work it off tomorrow.
Exactly. It's how we maintain a consistent self-image. We don't want to think of ourselves as irrational or impulsive, so our brains create narratives to explain our behavior.
So how does this relate to brainwashing?
Think about how someone might get drawn into a cult. At first, they might just attend a meeting out of curiosity.
Okay.
Then they start volunteering, making small donations, and gradually they become more and more invested.
Right.
Each step they take, their brain rationalizes it, coming up with reasons why this is the right path.
Yeah.
Even as they're getting deeper and deeper.
It's like a slippery slope. Each action justifies the next, even if it leads them down a path they never intended to take.
Right.
So how can we avoid falling into this trap of rationalization?
It comes back to having strong guiding principles.
Okay.
When you know what you stand for, what you truly believe in, it's harder to be swayed by those flimsy justifications. It's like having a compass to guide you through the fog of manipulation.
That's a great analogy. Knowing yourself and your values can help you stay grounded and make choices that align with who you truly are. Okay, let's talk about the next letter in the brainwash model. A is for attachments. This one seems pretty straightforward. Humans are social creatures. We crave connection, right?
Yes, but it goes deeper than just wanting to be part of a group.
Okay.
It's about that need for meaning and purpose, especially in a world that can often feel chaotic and overwhelming.
So if someone is feeling lost or adrift, they're more vulnerable to manipulation.
Absolutely. Cults, for example, often prey on people who are searching for something to believe in.
Right.
They offer a sense of community belonging, a clear set of rules to live by.
Okay.
It's like a one-stop shop for all those existential needs.
But it's not just cults, right? This applies to other areas of life, too.
Definitely. Think about advertising brands are masters at creating attachments to their products.
Yeah.
They associate them with positive emotions, aspirational lifestyles,
Right.
making you feel like you'll be happier, more successful, more loved if you just buy their product.
It's like those perfume ads that promise to make you irresistible, or those car commercials that make you feel like you're conquering the world just by driving their vehicle.
Exactly. They're tapping into those pre-existing desires for love, status, security.
And it's not just about material things either. Political campaigns often exploit our need for attachment by appealing to our fears and anxieties.
Right. They offer simple solutions to complex problems, making us feel like they understand our struggles and have the answers we've been searching for.
It's all about making that connection, creating a sense of belonging and shared purpose. And the more we understand our own needs and motivations, the better equipped we are to recognize when they're being exploited.
Exactly.
So how can we resist these manipulation tactics that prey on our need for attachments?
One way is to be mindful of the attachments you're already forming. Cultivate strong, healthy connections in your own life. Spend time with loved ones, build genuine relationships in your community.
Right.
Find activities that give you a sense of purpose and fulfillment.
It's like filling up your emotional tank so you're less susceptible to those empty promises and manipulative tactics.
Exactly. And
Right.
when you do encounter situations that feel manipulative, take a step back. Ask yourself, what need is this person or group trying to exploit? Are
Mhm.
they offering a genuine connection, or are they just using my desire for belonging to their advantage?
That's some really great advice.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dive into the next element of the brainwash model. I. What could that stand for? Intrigue illusion.
Actually, I stands for increments. Think of it like the saying, give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Okay.
Manipulators rarely ask for everything all at once.
Hmm.
Instead, they use small, gradual steps to nudge you in the desired direction.
Ooh, this is starting to sound familiar. Like those free trial subscriptions that morph into a monthly fee before you even realize what's happening. Increments in action.
Precisely. And it happens in more serious contexts as
Oh.
well. Think about multi-level marketing schemes. They don't ask you to invest your life savings up front.
Right.
They start with a small purchase, then invite you to a meeting, encourage you to recruit a friend or two. Before you know it, you're deeply entrenched.
So it's like they slowly turn up the heat so you barely notice the temperature change until you're already boiling.
Yes. And this incremental approach is even used in public policy. Look at the London congestion charge.
Hmm.
It started as a seemingly small fee to discourage driving in the city center. Then came low emission zones, then ultra low emission zones, and now it's spreading to other cities across the UK. What began as a nudge has become a significant restriction on personal mobility.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? How can we protect ourselves from these incremental manipulations?
Be wary of those small requests and commitments. Ask yourself, where could this lead? Think about the potential long-term consequences before you agree to anything, even if it seems insignificant at the time.
All right, on to N is for norms. This one seems to tap into our deep-seated desire to fit in, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Humans are social creatures, and we're hardwired to conform to the norms of our group.
Okay.
We look to others for cues on how to behave, especially in uncertain situations.
So if everyone else is doing it, we're more likely to go along with it, even if it goes against our better judgment.
Exactly. Think of a bird trap. Birds are naturally cautious, but if they see a bunch of other birds happily feeding inside the cage, they're more likely to enter, even though it's a trap.
It's like that feeling of FOMO, the fear
Yeah.
of missing out. If everyone else is doing something, we don't want to be left behind.
Right. And cults are masters at exploiting this tendency. They create strong group ties, us versus them mentalities, and use language to reinforce the norm, labeling outsiders as heretics or conspiracy theorists to discourage dissent.
So it's not just about fitting in, it's about avoiding being ostracized from the group.
Mhm.
Makes sense. But how does this tie into the science bit?
Well, studies have actually shown that people are more likely to donate to charity if they're told that others have already given large sums. It's called social proof, and it's a powerful driver of behavior. We see what others are doing and assume it must be the right thing to do.
Wow, that's fascinating. So how do we resist the pull of social norms, especially when we're feeling pressured to conform?
One strategy is to cultivate those critical thinking skills. Question the norms of your group.
Okay.
Ask yourself, Are these beliefs and behaviors truly aligned with my values?
Right.
Do I really agree with this, or am I just going along with the crowd? Don't be afraid to be the lone voice of dissent if you believe something is wrong.
That's great advice.
Okay.
Speaking of questioning things, let's move on to W is for wishes. This one seems pretty self-explanatory. Manipulation often plays on our deepest desires, right?
That's right. Manipulators are masters at identifying and exploiting our needs and greeds. They dangle something we want in front of us, whether it's wealth, status, love, or security, and then use that desire to control our behavior.
It's like that old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly. Think about modeling scams. They prey on young women's desire for fame and fortune, promising them lucrative contracts, but then demanding exorbitant fees for photo shoots or training.
Or those get-rich-quick schemes that promise you'll be making millions from home with just a few hours of work a week.
Precisely. And it's not just about falling for outrageous claims.
Right.
There's a scientific basis for this as well. Studies have shown that simply being exposed to images of money can make people more likely to choose cheaper products, even if the quality is lower.
Wait, so just seeing a picture of money can influence our purchasing decisions? That's crazy.
It is. Our desires, even those triggered subconsciously, can literally influence our perceptions and decisions. And that's why it's so important to be aware of our own wishes and to question whether they're being exploited.
So it's about taking a step back and asking ourselves, am I being seduced by a fantasy?
Yeah.
Is this really what I want? Or am I being manipulated into wanting it?
Exactly. That critical awareness is key to resisting manipulation. It's about recognizing the tactics and understanding how they're being used to influence our thoughts and behaviors.
This is all so incredibly insightful. We've only covered half of the brainwash model, and I already feel like I'm seeing the world in a whole new light.
It's amazing how much influence is happening beneath the surface. But the good news is, once you become aware of these tactics, they lose their power.
Right.
You become more discerning, more capable of making choices that are truly your own.
Okay, I am ready to hear more.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break and come back to tackle the remaining letters in the brainwash model. Autonomy symbols and heaven and hell. This is getting really good, folks, so don't go anywhere.
It is.
We'll be right back.
Yeah. Welcome back. We were just exploring how easily our desires can be manipulated even without us realizing it. Let's dive into the next fascinating element of Fagan's brainwash model.
Okay.
A is for autonomy.
Wait, how can the illusion of choice make us more compliant? That seems counterintuitive. If I think I have more freedom, shouldn't I be less likely to be controlled?
That's precisely the sneaky brilliance of this tactic. We're wired to resist being told what to do, but if we feel like we're making the decision ourselves, even if the options are limited, we're much more likely to go along with it.
So it's like a mental judo move.
Yeah.
Using our own resistance against us.
Exactly.
Can you give us a real-world example?
Absolutely. Think about those, but you are free to choose statements.
Okay.
A salesperson might say, you can buy the basic model or upgrade to the deluxe package with all the bells and whistles. But of course, the choice is entirely yours.
Oh, yeah.
They've subtly steered you toward the more expensive option while making you feel like you're in control.
Ugh, I can see how I've fallen for that before. You start thinking, well, they're right. It's I as my choice. And the deluxe package does sound pretty awesome.
Exactly. And it happens on a larger scale, too. Cults are notorious for this. They might tell their members they're free to leave at any time, but the social and psychological pressure to stay is immense. They've created a situation where leaving would mean losing your entire community, your support system, potentially even your sense of identity.
So even though they're technically offering a choice, the consequences of choosing differently are designed to keep you in line.
Precisely. There's even a name for this psychological phenomenon.
Okay.
Reactance. When people feel like they're being forced into something, they're more likely to rebel. That's why telling teenagers not to smoke can backfire.
Right.
The restriction itself makes it more appealing.
It's like that reverse psychology thing.
Yeah.
The more you forbid something, the more tempting it becomes. So how can we counter this autonomy manipulation? Should we be super suspicious anytime someone says, but you're free to choose?
That's a good starting point.
Yeah.
But more importantly, be aware of situations where you're being offered a limited set of choices.
Okay.
Ask yourself, are there other options that aren't being presented? Right.
Is this truly a free choice, or am I being subtly pressured into a particular direction?
So it's about stepping back and seeing the bigger picture, not just accepting the options that are laid out in front of us. Okay, let's move on to the next letter in the model. S is for symbols. We all know symbols are powerful, but what's shocking is how easily they can bypass our critical thinking.
Exactly. Symbols tap into a deeper subconscious level of our minds. Think about the innate releaser concept in evolutionary psychology. A baby goose, having never encountered a predator before, will instinctively react with fear to the silhouette of a hawk. The shape itself triggers a hardwired response, bypassing conscious thought.
So it's like our brains are taking a shortcut, responding emotionally to the symbol without even thinking about it.
Precisely. And Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, believed that humans have a collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of symbols and archetypes that evoke universal responses across cultures and time periods.
So certain symbols have a kind of built-in meaning that we all instinctively understand, like a universal language. Exactly. Think about how totalitarian regimes use symbols like the swastika or the hammer and sickle. They're not just logos. They're powerful tools for evoking strong emotions, creating group cohesion, and reinforcing ideology.
And brands use this all the time too, right? That iconic swoosh instantly makes you think of Nike and all the athleticism, aspiration, and coolness they've carefully cultivated around their brand.
Precisely. They tap into those pre-existing associations to influence our purchasing decisions, often without us even realizing it. Studies have shown that simply exposing people to images of money can make them more likely to buy things even if they don't need them.
So symbols are everywhere, silently working on us, even when we think we're making rational decisions. This is kind of blowing my mind. What's the key takeaway here for our listeners?
Be mindful of the symbols you're surrounded by.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what do they represent? What emotions do they evoke in me? What values or beliefs are they associated with?
Hmm.
Understanding the power of symbols can help you see through their manipulative potential.
Okay, this is getting intense. Now let's move on to the final letter of the brainwash model. H is for heaven and hell. This one sounds pretty heavy.
It is. It's about that push-pull dynamic that manipulators use to influence our behavior. They paint a picture of a desirable outcome, a heaven if you comply, and a terrifying consequence, a hell if you resist.
It's like the classic carrot and stick approach, right? Reward versus punishment.
Exactly. Think about prisoner of war interrogation tactics. The captors might torture a prisoner, telling them their country has abandoned them and that they're utterly alone. Then they might offer a glimmer of kindness, praising the virtues of their own ideology and promising a better life if the prisoner cooperates.
So it's about breaking down resistance and then offering a seemingly appealing alternative, all while controlling the narrative.
Precisely. And this isn't just limited to extreme situations.
Wow.
Religions often use this tactic, promising eternal bliss for believers and eternal damnation for non-believers.
Oh, wow. And we see this playing out in contemporary political discourse too, right?
Yeah.
The debates around climate change and 15-minute cities.
You got it. You've got one side painting a dystopian future of environmental collapse if we don't drastically change our ways, while the other side argues that those very solutions will lead to authoritarian control and a loss of individual freedoms.
So both sides are using this heaven and hell tactic to try and sway public opinion. It's like they're trying to make us choose between two extreme outcomes with no middle ground. Is there a science bit behind why this is so effective?
Absolutely. Research has shown that we're actually more motivated by the fear of loss than by the prospect of gain. So painting a picture of a negative outcome, a potential hell we want to avoid, can be a very powerful manipulation tool.
Wow, this brainwash model is pretty comprehensive. We've covered so much ground today, from bamboozlement to heaven and hell. It feels like a masterclass in recognizing manipulation.
And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. But now that you're aware of these tactics, you're less likely to fall for them. Patrick Fagan offers some practical tips in his book for resisting manipulation.
Okay, let's hear them. Give us the tools we need to fight back against the brainwashers. Okay, let's hear them. Give us the tools we need to fight back against the brainwashers.
Well, he emphasizes that awareness is our most powerful weapon. The more we understand these tactics, the less likely we are to be swayed by them. It's like knowing the magician's secrets. Once you see how the trick is done, it loses its power to amaze and deceive.
So knowledge is power. But what about those times when we're caught off guard, when we don't even realize we're being manipulated? What can we do in those moments?
Fagan suggests something he calls inoculation. It's like getting a vaccine against a virus. By exposing yourself to examples of these manipulation tactics, you build up a resistance to their effects. So read books like his, listen to podcasts like this, and pay attention to the ways influence is being used in the world around you.
So basically, do your research, arm yourself with knowledge, and stay informed about the latest tricks of the manipulation trade. What else can we do?
Another crucial tip is to stay calm and collected. Stress makes us more vulnerable to manipulation. When we're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, or tired, our critical thinking skills go out the window.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I definitely make worse decisions when I'm stressed or sleep deprived. It's like my brain goes on autopilot, and I'm not really thinking things through clearly.
Exactly. So make sure you're taking care of yourself, getting enough sleep, eating healthy foods, managing your stress levels. These things might seem basic, but they're essential for maintaining a clear and resilient mind.
Okay, I'm taking notes. Sleep, eat well, manage stress. Got it.
What else? Fagan also emphasizes the importance of listening to your gut instincts, that little voice inside that says, something doesn't feel right here. That's your internal alarm system going off. Don't ignore it.
It's like that feeling you get when you're about to click on a link that just seems a little too sketchy. Sometimes you just know something's off, even if you can't explain exactly why.
Exactly. Trust those instincts. They're often based on subtle cues and patterns that our conscious mind hasn't even registered yet.
Okay, so listen to your gut. What's the next tip?
This one's a big one. Question everything. Don't just accept things at face value. Ask questions, challenge assumptions. Do your own research. Be a critical thinker, not a passive consumer of information.
Especially in today's world, with so much information coming at us from all directions, it's more important than ever to be discerning. We can't just believe everything we read or hear.
Exactly. And finally, Fagan's last piece of advice is don't be afraid to walk away. If a situation feels manipulative, if someone is pressuring you to do something you're not comfortable with, if a news story seems too biased or sensationalized, step away.
That's such an empowering message. We don't have to be passive victims of manipulation. We have the power to say no, to disengage, to protect our own mental well-being.
Absolutely. Remember, you are the ultimate guardian of your own mind. You have the right to choose what you believe, what you engage with, and how you allow yourself to be influenced.
This has been such an incredible deep dive.
Well,
We've explored the dark arts of manipulation, but more importantly, we've learned how to recognize these tactics and protect ourselves from their influence.
it's been a pleasure.
I know I'm feeling much more empowered now to resist the brainwashers and stay true to myself. So to our amazing listeners out there, I challenge you to think about the last time you felt pressured to do something. Which part of the brainwash model was at play? Knowing what you know now, how might you handle that situation differently in the future? Share your thoughts and experiences with us on social media. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay free thinking.